The city was all around the acropolis. If you ask me what happened to the city, well, the houses were never beautifully built. That's why we only have public buildings from the antiquity. We don't have any private houses. They were built of mud, of wood. They didn't care very much about them, at least not during this time. So only public buildings have survived, marketplaces, temples, theaters, stadiums, and so on and so forth. Rectangular, just like the one of Athens. The one of Athens was slightly bigger, but it's just like the one you're going to see in Philippi on Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever it is. And imagine on each side there was a long portico, and it was divided in many, many shops. And people used to come here to do their shopping. They would buy anything they wanted. Women would not come to a place like this. It was kept basically
so the men
for
did
women.
the shopping?
No, the slaves did the shopping, okay? And would you know which was the most popular?
Translation.
Would you know which was the most popular shop in the marketplace? Think a little. The barber shop.
Really?
Yes. Because people used to go there, men in the morning, and get all the gossip, the first-hand information, what has taken place during the night. They would find out, they would be told about it in the morning, so they knew who had done what. And it was very popular, and in every marketplace there was at least 1 or 2 barber shops. Now, you can see that as long as you have the Roman ruins, right underneath we must have the Greek ones, okay? They have dug very deep ditches, but they have not been able to find interesting things, and they said, okay, just forget it. We're not going to do the whole thing once again, so they just left it like that. And you can see that in Athens they had marble they used, okay? Here there's not marble. They had the local porous stone, which is a kind of a soft, ugly stone, and this is what they used to do. They used to use them and pave them with plaster to make them look as if they were made of marble, okay? Now, when the Romans came, they destroyed everything. They respected only one thing, the temple of Apollo. Why? Look at the columns of the temple. Remember the ones we saw yesterday in the acropolis? They were made of many pieces, one above the other. This is what? This is monolithic.
Oh my
One
gosh.
solid piece. And being so, they're difficult to build, of course, and that's why they have resisted the earthquakes after all these centuries.
Wow.
Of course, they look a little, it's not, I mean, that's a result of shaking of earthquakes.
Wow.
It's not a question of, being built like that for the optical illusion, as I said yesterday on the Acropolis of Athens. But they have been moved a little, during the earthquakes. There were quite a few more of them, and there was a beautiful statue of Apollo, but nothing has survived. This is really one of the oldest monuments you can find again in Greece, an old temple. The columns standing like that without being restored. 6th century before Christ, while the rest, I repeat, is from the period of Julius Caesar, 44 BC. Any questions so far?
Maria, would you tell us again what is on top?
Fortification and the temple to Aphrodite or Venus.
Are those pillars that we can see from
No,
here?
no,
Or are
no,
they
no,
trees?
part of the wall, just, part of the wall. Just the wall, okay?
And that's what would we see if we hiked up there?
What do you see? Nothing.
would we see?
Nothing but the view. Just nothing but the view. From the temple there is nothing but the sun.
That's an acropolis.
That's the Acropolis.
Have these columns always been standing up?
Always.
So
always,
they've never
always.
had to...
Never been restored. Never.
Okay.
Never. Never.
Were there statues and things that were stolen and taken to other places like in Athens?
This place, we don't really have anything, whatever has been found here is in the small museum of Corinth. But if people have taken, you see what happened is that when the Romans came over, they enjoyed so much all these Greek statues, they took them along to Rome. And that's why if you go to Rome and other places of Italy, you'll see that it's full of Greek statues. They were not stolen, they had occupied the country, okay? So the country was theirs, and they could take whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Then later, during the Byzantine period, the Christian period, they took them again from here over there to Constantinopolis. So 2 different ways that all these things were taken to Rome at the beginning and to Constantinopolis later. How do we know? Many of the shipwrecks that we have, in the ocean, they're just located on those directions. It's not south, it's not north, it's east and west. On the way to Rome and on the way to Constantinopolis.
Has anyone ever returned any statues?
I mean, all the British people, you know, have promised they will return all
Yeah.
these things because they belong to the reconstruction of the Parthenon. The rest, I don't think so. I mean, if they return us those things, then they should do the same thing with the Egyptians or with, I don't know what, the Mexicans.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Who likes such a thing, you know? Nobody really wants
Marie,
Now, yeah.
when Paul traveled, he was on foot or horseback?
I'm coming
Oh, okay.
to Paul, okay?
That was my transition to help you through.
Let me just tell you the basic things about Paul. You keep them in mind. I will come back to those things again. Paul was born, according to most scholars, 1 year before Christ.
Oh.
In the city of Tarsus, in the province of Cilicia, which is today's Turkey or Asia Minor of those days. If I use the, you know, the term Turkey, Turkey is a new country. It has been there for the last 500 years. Okay, so they have nothing to do with what we're talking about. It was called Asia Minor then. Okay, so he was born in Asia Minor, and he was of Greek, Jewish origin. His mother language was Aramaic and Hebrew. He spoke Greek, and he was a Jew, and his name was not Paul, of course, it was Saul. Okay. We don't know very many things about his youth, except that he was sent over to Jerusalem to study with the best rabbi of those days, Gamaliel. He spent his youth in Jerusalem, and we have more, you know, records, documents on his life from his 35th year on. We see him witnessing the stoning of Saint Stephen right outside the walls of Jerusalem. And although he was not stoning him himself, he was just holding the clothes. And then later he confessed that he felt that he was stoning with the hands of everybody. He saw this young man, this deacon, meeting death with a smiling face on his, you know, on his face, having a smile on his face, not being mad or angry about these people trying to kill him. This must have had a tremendous impact on him, because it was right after that event that the diaspora of the Jews started, because Jerusalem, after the stoning of Stephen, was not a safe place anymore for them. So they started, you know, going away. One group of them went to Damascus. That was a place to make money, to make business. So Saul was sent over to Damascus in charge of the persecution of those early Christians. So we find him on his way, you know, to Damascus. Most probably he was on a horse in those days. And coming to your question, he could walk. If he had the money, he could hire, you know, a horse or a donkey or a mule, or he would sail. These were the three ways of traveling, you know, on a carriage or horse, or sailing and walking. And you know that on an average, he must have covered about 20 miles daily. How do we know that? They have discovered inns, small hotels, at 20 miles distance, you know, one from the other. So this is what they believe, that people could, you know, cover that distance in those days. Anyway, we see him going slowly towards Damascus, and right before he arrived in the city, he had this famous vision when he saw Christ, because physically he never met Christ. Although he was just the same age, 1 year younger than Christ, but they never met physically. But on his way to Damascus, he heard his voice and he saw him in a vision. Christ asked him, "Why do you persecute me?" We know from descriptions that he lost his sight for 3 days, and the people that were traveling with him, you know, guided by the Holy Spirit, took him over to the house of Ananias, the man that was a Christian in Damascus, and that's where Paul was baptized. Then imagine what a tremendous change was for him, from persecuting the Christians to become the warmest preacher of Christianity. It was an emotional, a spiritual, a psychological change, and he needed some time, you know, to come to terms with it. So he went over to the Arabian desert, where he spent a couple of years or 3 years, and then he went back home. And we lose track of him for the next 10 years. What did he do? He was a Pharisee, and he was a tent maker by profession. We find him again in the year 48 AD, that makes him 49 years old, when Barnabas, a schoolmate from the days of Jerusalem, a young man from Cyprus, who had become a Christian, was on his way to Jerusalem. So he thought of going to Tarsus to find Saul, and that's what he did. So together they went to Jerusalem, and it was right there where the missionary life or journeys were planned.